Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. So nice to be here this evening. Not sure how many people we'll have with us today, but it's great to see at least a couple of you here. Nice to see you. Good afternoon, good evening, I suppose. So hi, nice to see you all. Because this is the first live stream, if you could leave me a little message in the chat just to let me know if this actually works and that you can hear me, that would be fantastic. So that I can confirm that this is all working. Okay, I'll just wait just a second to see if we have anyone else joining us. Okay, well, maybe we'll have some people in a moment, but let's get started anyway. So thank you everyone for coming. My name is Fiona, and I'm going to be your teacher and guide for this this series of live streamed lessons. These, as you may have guessed, these lessons are based on preparing for the Cambridge B1 preliminary English test and the PET exam. Over the next 10 weeks, we're going to be working through the different parts of the exam, breaking it down into smaller, thank you, Robin, more manageable parts, and looking at them in detail, and really, hopefully, giving you the best opportunity to be as prepared as possible for that exam when it comes. So make sure that you subscribe to our channel, to the Home Studies channel, and press the little notification bell so that you're reminded every time we have a lesson. And these lessons are going to be live every week at the same time, so 8:30 in the evening on Tuesday. And if you are able to come to the live session, that would be great. It's a little more interesting for me when there are people here, and also it will give you a chance to interact and to participate in the lesson. I am always available to answer messages and comments, and I love to see your comments in the chat. So let's get started. In this lesson, we are going to give a general overview of the B1 exam. We're going to look at some of the example questions and maybe do a little practice and talk about what the exam is and why you might choose to do the B1 exam. I would love to know, so if any of you who are watching right now, if any of you are preparing for the exam, not necessarily the B1, but if you're preparing for that, I would love to know why you decided to study. I know personally, I did my B1, not my English B1, I did my Spanish B1, and my reason for that was really to have a certificate, to have some evidence that I could, in fact, speak some Spanish. I knew it was useful for my work, useful to have on my CV. So I'm curious to know what some of your reasons are. Leave me a little message in the in the chat if you like. That would be super. But anyway, if you are watching live and you're able to stick around to the end, I promise it will be worth it, because at the end of this video, I'm going to share with you my #1 tip for passing the B1 exam, for getting the best results. And it's a tip, a piece of advice that not all teachers will give you, and that not everyone might know. So if you stick around to the end, I'll give you my secret. Not really a secret, but I think it's good advice. So let's move on. I'm going to share a visual with you, and we're going to talk about what is the B1 level, and realistically, what you are expected to be able to do at that level. Okay, so if you give me a moment to share this with you. I'm going to share my screen with you, and hopefully you will be able to see it. This is my first time doing this, so just give me a second. Here we go. Okay, there we go. We got PowerPoint up. Let's get the slideshow open. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at where the B1 level sits in regards to the different levels of English that we have. Okay, so you can see here on the left-hand side, we have the levels from A1 all the way up to C2. A1 being very basic, beginner level, and up to C2 being basically bilingual. So the exam that we're focusing on today is at the B1 level, as you can see here. And as you can see in the table, there are several different exams at this level that you could choose to take. The one that we're focusing on today is the preliminary PET exam, this one here in the middle. But all of the other exams in this purple rectangle are of the similar level. On the left, we have the preliminary PET for schools. And on the right, we have the business preliminary BEC exam. Now, these exams are all at the same level. They are all B1 level, and that you can get the same certificate, the B1 level certificate for these. The only difference is that the preliminary PET for schools contains more language and more questions and more material for younger students. So perhaps it would contain questions about school and about studying and about housework and homework. Whereas the PET, the regular PET that we're focusing on today, is normally aimed at adults or at least older learners, because you will encounter questions about work, about studying, about future plans. Now, the business preliminary, the BEC, I believe is not going to be continued after this year, after the middle of this year. But at the moment, this is the exam that we have, and this is available again at B1 level, but for people who are focused on business. And the exam will contain more business-related vocabulary. I believe this exam is sort of being replaced by LinguaSkill, but we'll maybe talk about that in a future video. Okay. And you can see how these exams compare to the other exams like BULAT and the IELTS. Okay, Cambridge B1, we would put approximately between a 4 and a 5 at IELTS. So, what can you do at B1 level? This is basically it. This is what you can do at the B1 level. B1 is an intermediate level, a lower intermediate level. And at this level of English, you are expected to be able to take part in day-to-day conversations, to give basic opinions, describe experiences, and to understand the main ideas of short or relatively simple texts, and to maintain a conversation, a day-to-day conversation. Okay, so if we contrast that a little bit with, for example, B2, which is the next level up, in B2, we might be focusing more on abstract themes. We might be using more formal language and more specific vocabulary. At B1, we try to keep it very general. Okay, so onto the exam. The B1, the PET exam, it consists of 4 parts. All right, we have the first part, which is the reading, which we're looking at just now. Then we have the writing, the listening, and the speaking. Now, normally, in my experience anyway, the reading, the writing, and the listening parts are done on the same day. Okay, the reading, which is 45 minutes, is done first, followed by the writing, which is also 45 minutes, and the listening, which is usually approximately 30 minutes. The speaking part of the exam is often done on a different day. So for example, you might come in on a Saturday morning to do your reading, writing, and listening, and then have a specific time on a Sunday to come in and do your speaking test separately. Okay, that's because your speaking test is done with a partner or with a very small group, and we need to coordinate the times with the groups and with the examiners. Okay, so let's take a moment now and go through these 4 parts of the exam. And we're going to start with the reading. We'll look at the different types of questions that you might see or that you will see in the exams. And we're going to look at just one example for each type of question so that you have an idea of what to expect and of the level that we're going to see. So here we have reading, 45 minutes, obviously. We have 6 parts of the reading, okay? In part 1, we have a multiple choice activity. In this part, we have, I think it's 5 or 6, short notices. And this could be a text message or a poster with some basic information on it. You will then have 3 different options that you need to choose from that best corresponds to the meaning of that notice. In part 2, the second part of the reading, it's a matching activity. So we have to match 5 people to 5 descriptions. For example, I've seen 5 people who want to go on holiday, for example, and then on the other part of the task, we have some different holiday destinations and different activities. So we read the descriptions of the people and we try to match them to the best holiday for them. Part 3 is multiple choice again. The difference between part 1 and part 3 is that part 3 is a longer text. So it is approximately 100 words, more or less. But your objective is to read for general meaning, as well as perhaps the writer's opinion, and make your choice based on that. Part 4 of the reading exam is a sentence gap fill activity. Okay? Again, it's a longer text. Sentences have been removed from the text, and so you have to read them and try to choose the most appropriate to complete the paragraph or to complete the section. Part 5, again, is another gap fill. This time, we're looking at a shorter text. And in this text, single words have been removed. And we have 3 or I think 4 different options that we have to choose the best word to complete the gap. Part 6, final part, is similar to part 5. It's also a gap fill. Okay, there are missing words, but the difference with this is it's not a multiple choice. Okay, you have to read the text very carefully, look at the context, and choose and decide on the most appropriate word for that gap. Okay, so you're choosing it. It's not a multiple choice. All right. Let's have a look at some examples. I know it's kind of a little bit dry after a while. Okay. All right. So one example here. Let's just see. Okay. So this is reading part 1, and we can see our question or a little notice on the left-hand side. Win a car competition. Entries will only be accepted from people who are at least 18. On the right, we have our 3 options, A, B or C? Now, I'm going to give you a minute to read this, and then we'll see if we can eliminate some of the incorrect options. If you think you know the answer already, please write it in the chat. I'd love to see if you can get it. Thanks, Robin. Good guess. You might be right there. All right, so we can eliminate C, as Robin said. Only 18-year-olds are allowed to enter this competition. That's not the answer, and we know it's not the answer because it says here only 18-year-olds. In the text, we have at least 18, which suggests a minimum age. So we can eliminate C. Good job. Well, if we have a look at B, we have there is a maximum age limit for this competition. Well, I don't think that's good because it says a maximum age limit, and here it says at least 18, which implies a minimum age limit. So I'm going to eliminate B, I think, which leaves us with A. Let's just check it. The competition is open to people over a certain age. Over, in this case, means older than, and here that corresponds nicely to at least 18. So in this case, A would be our correct option. All right, on to part 2. So this is our matching activity, and we're not going to do this entire task. We're going to have a look at one part of it, because we'd be here all night. So here we can see on the left we have 5 people, and in this example, these are people who want to visit markets. And on the right hand side here, we can see a selection of different markets that they could visit. So let's have a look at just one of these people. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger if possible. Let's try this. Okay, we're going to focus on Jenny. Let's have a little look at Jenny. So Jenny wants to buy locally produced traditional food to the area. She needs somewhere convenient to eat, and as she's sightseeing in the city, the market shouldn't be far from local attractions. So while we're reading, we need to really take notice of what things Jenny specifically wants in her market. Do you have any idea what those things are? I'll give you a clue. There are 3 things. 3 things that Jenny is looking for in her market. If you have any ideas, you can pop it in the chat. Just give you a second to think about it. Okay, so we've got that Jenny wants to buy locally produced traditional food. That would be one thing. She wants somewhere convenient to eat. And as she's sightseeing in the city, she wants the market to be not far, to be near the local attractions. So locally produced food, convenient, somewhere convenient to eat, and near local attractions. So let's go back and look at our options. Now, I'm only going to give you 2 different options this time. Let's focus on option E and option F. Okay, so E, we have Olford Lane Market, and F, Purford Market. Now, remember those things that Jenny's looking for. She's looking for locally produced food. She's looking for somewhere convenient to eat. And she is looking for, what was the other thing? Near other attractions. Okay, she wants it to be near other things that she can see. So I'll give you a moment to read these two markets, read these two texts. And let's see if we can take a guess. Which one do you think Jenny would prefer? Okay, now I'm going to help you out a little bit. So here we have Alford Lane. It has jewelry and clothes. It has good weather, apparently. And it has places to sit and watch the world go by. Does it have food? No. Is it near the other attractions? No. So it's not really what Jenny's looking for. However, if we look at Purford Market, at option F, we can see that it is close to museums and art galleries. Okay, it's near the other attractions. We can see that it has food, place to buy something for lunch, fresh fruit, special breads, the region's famous cheese. Okay, that's perfect for Jenny. And it has somewhere convenient to sit. It has eating on the seats situated around the market. Okay, so option F for me, I would say, is definitely best option. Okay, so there we go. This is reading part 2. Let's jump on to reading part 3. Again, we're not going to do this entire activity, but let's have a little look just at this first question. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bigger for you. Okay, so this text, as you can see, is about an artist called Peter Fuller, talking about his hobby. Now, his hobby, I can tell you, is mountain biking. All right, so we're going to have a look just at the first question. Let me just zoom out for a moment. Here is the first question. Okay, Peter enjoys mountain biking because, and here we have 4 options. It gives him the opportunity to enjoy the views. He can use the time to plan his work. He is able to stop thinking about his problems, very important, and it helps him to concentrate better. Okay, so these are our 4 options. Okay, now if we go back and have a look at the first section of this text, okay, I'm going to read it to you just because I'm not sure if you can see it. If you can see it, please let me know. I get the feeling maybe the quality is not so good at the moment. Or maybe that's just me or how I'm seeing it. Anyway, so remember, these are our 4 options. It gives him, Peter enjoys mountain biking because it gives him the opportunity to enjoy views. He can use the time to plan his work. He is able to stop thinking about his problems, or it helps him to concentrate better. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a little help here. Here we have a sentence that's very, very important. Okay, and it says, more importantly, racing along as fast as you can leaves you no time to worry about anything that's going on in your life. No time to worry about anything that's going on in your life. And in my opinion, that corresponds best to answer C. Okay, he is able to stop thinking about his problems. Okay, let's jump on. Reading part 4. This is a gap fill activity, as we talked about before. We have sentences that have been removed from the text. These are the sentences on the right. And on the left, we can see the example text. Okay, so when you are doing this part, it's very important to look at the context of the paragraph or of the sentences surrounding the gap. So if we're looking at just number 16 as an example, we can see that this person is talking, is talking about their previous job. Because in the first sentence, it says, I used to work as a college lecturer. Okay. Now, we can also pay attention to the grammatical tense that is being used. So what verb tense can we see in this first paragraph? Does anyone know? Give you a little clue. Liked, wasn't. Okay, these are both indicators of the past simple. So that tells me that the sentence that's missing here is probably in the past simple. Okay, and it's talking about his previous job. Now, we can tell by a process of elimination that A, that's why I knew it was a terrible plan, is probably not a very good idea because here he hasn't mentioned a plan. There is no plan. What plan? B, he is talking about icy water in the UK. Here, he has no mention of icy water. It's unrelated. C, they always ask a lot of questions. Well, who? Here there's mention of students, but it's not directly connected to the missing sentence. I work far harder than I used to. Well, could be, that's an option. The reason I don't think it's correct, though, is because it's using the present simple. And here, in the rest of the paragraph, we are using the past simple. Option E, I began joking about sending an application. Here we have no mention of an application, so no thank you. F, afterwards, some people were surprised by my decision. Well, here, there's no mention of a decision, so what? And G, I decided I needed a break. In my opinion, this would be the best option because it is both using the past simple and it is talking about a break from his job, from his previous job. So that's what reading part 4 looks like. We're getting there. This is the most complicated part. Okay, so reading part 5, we have another gap fill activity. And the difference with this is we have multiple choice options. So for 21, for example, we have the options of temperature, condition, climate, and weather. So let's just take a minute to look at that first sentence. And we'll see if anyone can get the answer. Oops. There we go. Okay, the coconut tree. Coconut tree is thought to be one of the most valuable trees in the world. It is mostly found by the sea, where there is a hot and wet something. Okay, and our options are a hot and wet temperature, a hot and wet condition, a hot and wet climate, or a hot and wet weather. Now, I would eliminate temperature because temperature can be hot, but temperature cannot be wet. Condition, a hot and wet condition. We do not use condition in this context to talk about weather. We could say weather conditions with the S in plural, but a condition, no. Climate, I would say, is a good option in this case. A hot and wet climate sounds good. And weather, although we can have hot and wet weather, we can't say a weather. So for that reason, we can eliminate that one. And I think C would be our best option here. All right, final part of the reading. Oh, we're getting there. Okay, this is another gap fill. This time we have to use our brains a little bit more because we have to think of the words that are missing. In this part, it's typically articles or prepositions that are missing, and not always, but very often. So let's just look at the very first example quickly and see if we can get an idea. This is one of my favorite places to visit. I've learned a huge amount about animals and plants each time I've visited. I've even seen bits of rock from the moon. Any ideas? Come on, guys. I'd love to hear from you. I feel so lonely here just talking to myself. Come on, you can do it. Yes. Well done. Thanks, Imran. Each time I visited would be a good option. I would also say every time I visited. Each or every, I think in this context, could be a good option. So super, thank you. All right. Whew. Okay, reading done. I know it's not the most interesting, but hopefully this will be useful information for you. Okay, the writing part, we're not going to do examples of the writing today, simply because we'd be here all night. But the writing, as I mentioned before, is there's two parts to it. In the first part, we have about 100 words, and it's typically answering an email. I think in the past, it was answering a letter, and I think now it's almost always an email. In part two, it's similar length, about 100 words as well, but you have a choice. You can choose to either write an article or a story. Let's have a look at some examples of the types of questions that you might see. Okay, so this is writing part one, what it might look like. You can see here, we have an email from Sandy, our English friend, obviously. So when we're answering this email, we need to look at the prompts that are given to us. We have to respond to them. We have to give a preference. We have to give a reason. And we have to ask Sandy a question. Okay. And we have, this part is quite nice because we have some structure, we have some information and some notes that you can use to help you. Moving on to part two. So in this part, you can choose which question, which type of text you would prefer to write. And the first option here is typically an article, or an article for a website or for a magazine. In this case, we can see it's an article for an English language website about films. Okay, we have some questions about the type of information for you to include. The other option is to write a story, and here we can see the introductory sentence to that story. And I don't want to influence you, but I usually recommend to my students that they write the article instead of the story. The reason for that is it gives you a little bit more structure. It gives you a bit more information that you can incorporate into your writing. However, if the theme of the article is something that you don't know anything about and you have no idea, then of course the story is also a good option. You can absolutely do that. They are the same length, so approximately 100 words for each. And there is a little flexibility of about 10%. So if you write 110 words, that's still okay. All right, on to the listening part. Now, listening is normally about 30 minutes, depending on the length of the audio. And it contains 4 parts. Part 1 is a multiple choice with images. Okay, you have to choose the correct photo, A, B, or C. Part 2 is also multiple choice. However, this This is listening to 6 short dialogues, and we're listening for the general idea of the general message of each of these dialogues. Part 3 is a gap fill activity, listening to someone speaking continuously and completing the text. And part 4 is a multiple choice activity. We normally hear an interview with someone asking and someone answering questions. And we're really listening for details in that part 4. So looks like we have time to do just some of these quickly. So let's have a look at part 1. This is very typical part 1 question. We have our question here at the top. I'm going to play the audio for you, and we'll see if we can decide what you think the answer is. So we have the letter A, looks like some shelves. Letter B, a lamp. And letter C, I assume, is a cushion. Let's listen and see what you think the answer could be. When you know it, write it to me in the chat.
Question 1.
1. What did the girl buy on her shopping trip?
Hi, Lucy. Have you been shopping?
Yeah, getting stuff for my room at college.
What's it like?
Well, not large. There's a bed, a desk, but nowhere to put books. And there's only one big light in the ceiling. I prefer to have a lamp on my desk, so that's what I got today. If I've got enough money, I'll get some bookshelves next week. They had some lovely big cushions on special offer in the department store. I nearly got one today, actually. So maybe the bookshelves can wait.
Okay. Any ideas about what it was? What did the girl buy? She was thinking about buying the cushions. She was thinking about buying the bookshelves. But she actually bought the lamp. Good job. Well done, Robin. On a roll today. Okay, on to part 2. So part 2 is also multiple choice. Okay, we're going to hear a little conversation, 2 friends talking about a new clothes shop. So what does the girl say about it? The staff are helpful. It only has latest fashions, or prices are reduced at the moment. So let's try this.
8. You will hear 2 friends talking about a new clothes shop.
I see you've been to that new clothes store in the shopping centre.
Oh, you saw the logo on these bags? Yes, it's really popular. I got a couple of tops and some trousers.
Who did you go with?
On my own, but the assistants were nice, telling me whether things suited me or not, and getting me to try different sizes. The coolest, most fashionable stuff has already gone, but I was glad I found things I liked that didn't cost too much. They weren't expensive compared to some things there.
I'd better tell my sister to get down there.
Okay, any ideas about this one? She did mention something about the prices. She mentioned something about the latest fashions. But that's not what she said overall. That wasn't the most important thing. She said that the assistants were helpful. The assistants means the staff, which would give us letter A. Well done if you got that, even if you didn't write it in the chat. I'm sure you got it in your brain. Okay, listening part 3. We're getting there, we're nearly there. Listening part 3 is a gap fill activity. So we're going to listen to a person talking, I imagine Anita talking about her holiday in Cuba. Lucky Anita. She's going to speak continuously, and we have the chance to try and complete. Let's just focus on the first question, just number 14. Okay. In the National Gardens, the something was the thing that attracted most people. let's listen to just the first section of this and see if we can get it.
You will hear a radio presenter called Anita talking about her holiday in Cuba.
Hi everyone, Anita here. On today's program, I'm going to tell you about the week I've just spent in Cuba. We arrived on Sunday, and on Monday morning, we went on our first visit. This was the National Gardens. These are full of trees and flowers, and there was a fantastic waterfall that everyone stopped to admire, although the rainforest exhibition was the bit I liked best. On the second day,
Okay, and that was quite fast. And remember, in the exam, the audio is repeated, so you will hear this twice. Just as our practice, any ideas? It's quite tricky. She mentioned two things. She mentioned the waterfall, and she mentioned, what was the other thing? The gardens? Can't remember, forgotten now. Okay, so here, the thing that attracted the most people was the waterfall. Although it wasn't her favorite, it wasn't Anita's favorite, but that was what attracted the most. Okay, on to the final part of the listening. Okay, this is an interview, typically. And in this case, we have an interview with a woman called Vicky Prince, a champion swimmer who now works as a swimming coach. And first question, we've got Vicky went in for competitions. So Vicky started to participate in competitions because A, she had joined a swimming club, her parents were keen on swimming, her swimming teacher encouraged her. Let's listen and see if you can get that answer. Remember, this is just a little practice, a first look at the question. So don't worry if you have no idea what is going on. Okay, let's listen.
You will hear an interview with a woman called Vicky Prince, a champion swimmer who now works as a swimming coach.
I'm talking to champion swimmer Vicky Prince, who started competitive swimming as a teenager. Why swimming, Vicky?
Well, though my parents are interested in sport, they are great swimmers themselves, and we didn't go swimming that often. I learnt at school like everyone else and just seemed to be good at it. So my teacher persuaded me to go in for competitions. I mean, I did join a swimming club later, but that wasn't where it all started.
Okay, I wonder if anyone heard that. I'd love to hear from you if you did. I'm not going to wait for too long because I'm very conscious of the time. Okay, she mentioned all of these three things. She mentioned that she joined a swimming club, but that was later. What we're looking for was that her swimming teacher encouraged her to participate in these competitions. Okay. So let's very, very quickly go through the speaking. We're not going to practice these activities today, but just to give you an idea of what is coming up. The speaking part of the exam is normally between 10 and 12 minutes, and there are 4 parts to it. You do the speaking exam in a pair, as I mentioned before, or sometimes in a group of 3. Part 1, the first part, is a very simple interview. The examiner will ask you some questions about you, and you are expected to give them just a little bit of personal information. The second part is photo description. So you will have a look at a nice color photograph, and you will have 1 minute to describe what you can see in the photo. Part 3 is a discussion, okay, a conversation between you and your partner, the other student. The examiner will give you a situation, and you have to talk about different options together. And finally, part 4 is general conversation questions. These questions are normally related to part 3, and they are between you and the examiner and your partner. Just show you some examples. These are some questions you could typically see in part 1, very basic. This is a photo you could see in part 2. Okay, here we have family. We can talk about the people, the objects, the place, the situation. Part 3, here we have an example of the task. We have the situation. The man works very hard and he wants to relax. Here are some activities he could do. And you and your partner talk together to try and decide which would be the best activity for him. Okay, and part 4, as you can see, these questions are related to the theme of part 3. What do you do when you want to relax? But they are a little bit more in-depth and a little bit more personal and give you the opportunity to give your opinion. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing just because we're finished. Here we go. All right. Okay, and that is almost the end of our lesson. Now, before we go, I did say I was going to share my secret with you. My secret. my secret for getting the best result in your B1 exam is lie. When you're speaking, when you're writing, lie. What you say and what you write doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be accurate about you. If you see the context, see the question, and have no idea, then invent something. Get creative. The examiner has no way to know that what you're saying is not true for you. So lie. Go for it. Get creative. So thank you very much for coming to the first of these live streamed lessons. I hope this has been somewhat useful for you. And don't forget that if you are preparing for your exam and you would like a little bit of extra support, you can get in touch with Home Studies. The contact details are in the description below. And we would love to hear from you, and we can help with individual or group classes to help you feel as prepared as possible. And I hope to see you at the same time next week. Next week, we're going to look at the writing part specifically of the exam. We'll have opportunities to practice, and hopefully we'll have some more people so we can practice answering some of the questions in the chat together. That's it. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope to see you all next week. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss our next week's session. Bye.